Yeah. All right. We'll move on then. Let's go to the new playoff format. So just a reminder of the MLS playoff format that um, changed this most recent way. They've brought back the three-legged or the three-game first leg. Nine teams are going to qualify for the playoffs. They're going to have a wild card round between seeds 8 and 9 in each conference. And then one will play that team, two will play seven, three will play six, four will play five. In that 18 series, it will be a best of three series with a home, away, home setup. Conference semifinals and finals will also go back to single elimination. So it'll be like it was last year. Every game hosted by the higher seed, one game elimination. Um, and then the conference final is the same way. And then so is MLS Cup. So really, it's not the biggest change in the world, but they've extended the playoffs again to include over half of the teams. They've added up to two extra games that are supposed to make it um, more must-win games, which I think somebody did the math and the percentage actually went down in must-win games with the addition of this best three series. I hate this personally, but I want to know what your thoughts are before I continue on.
So it's wild card through spot nine. That's a one game. Oh no, that's a one game, one playoff game, and then just one round is a best of three,
Yeah, so the
or is it
wild
two?
card is a single elimination game. It's 8 versus 9, winner moves on.
Yeah.
Then that winner plays the first seed in a best of three series. So it's home, away, home, win two, and move on.
Okay. So I think there's part. I know they were talking about this last night on 360, and honestly, I think they kind of like convinced me into it a little bit more than I was originally. There's parts of it I don't like, and there's parts of it I do. The part that I don't like is the fact that nine teams out of each conference qualify for the playoffs now. Kind of loses the magic of making the playoffs at this point, considering I want to make sure I have the math right here. 1 second.
Go on, math.
Considering over 50% of the teams in the conference make the playoffs, it's kind of ridiculous. 9 out of 15, meaning only 6 out of 15 don't make the playoffs. So I kind of get it in that, like, if you're struggling, I think they mentioned this last night too. If you're struggling, you're sitting in like 11th to 13th, but you're like missing a key player because he's hurt. Like let's say the Galaxy was in like 11th to 13th because Ricky Puig got hurt for a long period of time. Then he comes back late in the season. You're able to make a little bit of a run and sneak into that like wild card spot. Now all of a sudden you're like a dangerous team again, and your season's not over because Ricky Puig missed most of the season. I kind of get it, but I still don't like the fact that so many teams make the playoffs. I mean, even 8 out of 15 is more than 50% of teams making the playoffs. I feel like you could cut it at seven, and then it has more meaning that actually like having a good season, staying healthy, and being able to make the playoffs. Um, but the part that I do like about the playoff format, I do kind of like the best 2 out of 3 because I feel like it gives us more. I feel like more often than not, it will give us the better team moving on as opposed to kind of a fluke, like one off win moves like a team that isn't, I would say, the better team on, but just was better on the day. So like maybe in the situation like a couple of years ago when Philly and NYC played and Philly had all the people out with the COVID restrictions, maybe that's a scenario where if you have 2 out of 3, Philly can like get those guys cleared and now they're back for the last two games. Maybe they win those two games then and NYC doesn't move on because they played a bunch of Philly backups. So I don't mind the best 2 out of 3. That was also something they talked about. I know Sasha mentioned it about them having to play more games. I didn't realize it was just 1 round. I mean, that's not really adding a lot more games. It adds at most 2 games for teams. So, I mean, I guess 3 if you went wild card and then you played like best of 3. So I feel like that's the max is like 3 games, but I don't feel like that's that much. I know they already kind of have busy schedules, but um, we could talk about it at another point in time. But I think the roster rules are more so the problem than the schedule itself.
Not get me started.
No, I know. I
Um,
don't want to. I don't want to get it down a whole other tangent with that. But
the the one thing I'll say is that Philly game that you mentioned, the Philly NYC, that still would have been a single elimination game. That was the
no,
conference
I know. But
finals.
I was just using. I know.
Nope,
I know it's a conference.
I
I
get what
just
you're
meant
saying.
like if that game was in a two out of
Yep,
three.
yep, I get what you're saying. I just wanted to point that out. To completely agree. I think it really should be top 7. Even that's still a lot, but really you're going to go and put
Mhm.
6 teams in the playoffs. That's less than half. That's the way I think it should be done. You get top 5 in, and then 6, 7 go to a wild card. So now you're playing 1 versus 6, 2 versus 5, 3 versus 4. That feels more playoffy than 1 versus 8. You know, this isn't March Madness where we got 64 teams and everybody can just play everybody. Um, I think the wild card will be fun. They talk about it, and yeah, you got teams, but the wild card is just an extra game in what was already last year's playoffs, right? You're just doing a single elimination between 2 teams that need to get in. So it'll be. They talk about how much fun it'll be, right? It'll be okay, but um, it needs to be
Is it
more
like
selective.
how much is it really going to be that much fun though? Like if you took the teams that finished there in the West last year, you're watching Portland, Vancouver. Is that like really going to get you out of your seat that much to watch Portland,
Correct.
Vancouver in a one-off playoff? Who's then just going to go get stomped by LAFC?
Correct. I think what this might be is to keep more teams in it longer, right?
Yeah,
Everybody
I think
complains
so
like, "Oh,
too.
there's no relegation, so what's the point if you're already in last?" Well, now if we make almost every team get into the playoffs, every team's fighting to the end, right? So I hate that, by the way. Like, if you're out, you're out. And we talked about this.
Yeah,
Use that time to play your young players and give them experience, like DC last year. And look what happened. They let Cudi Pietro play like the last 7 games. And what does he do? He scores a game winner last week. Phenomenal. Off of Fletcher's service, too. You know, anyways, sorry, that's a tangent. Best of 3 is not a football thing. It's not a soccer thing. Best of 3 is basketball. Best of 3 is hockey. Best of 3 is baseball. Soccer should never be best of 3. They tried it MLS 1.0, 2.0, and I hated reading about it. It was the most confusing thing ever. They've made it simple here because nothing can end in a tie and there are no points or whatever. But I just think it is not something that should be put into soccer or football, depending on how you call it. It's
they already kind of borderline have that. I mean, in like every European competition, it's home and away.
sure, but that's what I listen. I'm here for 2 legs, right? 2 legs was MLS 2.0, early 3.0, and I loved it.
Yeah, but then what's the advantage for the team that's the higher seed? There's no benefit to them for doing better in the regular season because both teams get a home game.
So then go single elimination. If I were to rank it, give me double, single, then 3. That's how I would do it. The double elimination or the double leg makes sense if you're using away goals, right? If it's just 2 games, that's one thing. But if it's away goals, it gives the home team a little bit of an advantage, right? You've got the fact that you're playing at home. You're supposedly supposed to be stronger at home. Red Bull 2022. I'm looking at you. You're supposed to be better at home, so you're supposed to be able to score more and concede less, which means when you go away, you can just sit in, prevent them from scoring, and move on. That being said, if you do single elimination, you should just be better and win, right? And that takes away, that's more of a crapshoot. I get it. At the end of the day, 3 of them, you're now asking teams to play 3 games in 5 days, 6 days, however long it's going to be, right? And now that team is now going to need to rely on the depth of their roster to handle these games. You can't have teams running through 90 minutes 3 times a week and expect them to be completely fit. So now you're going to have to rely on the depth of your team. And you've got roster spots that are strictly designed. We're going to get into roster rules. Here we go. You've got roster rules that are designed strictly to have homegrown players in it, teenage homegrown players in 2 of your 30 roster spots. Now, I had this conversation with somebody on Facebook the other day. If we have MLS Next, a league that is designed specifically for the development and the professional exposure of homegrown potential players, why do we still have roster spots that are only allowed for homegrowns? Why do we not make those free roster spots for senior players, for senior minimum players, whatever you want to call them? Why are we still restricting them as developmental homegrown slots when we have teams that are already there? It was a great idea when we didn't have MLS Next Pro or USL teams that we could loan to. That system is already very well defined. So why are we not allowing teams, if this is the way we're going to go with our playoff set, why are we not allowing teams to make their roster properly so they can handle these tournaments? You're asking teams now to care strictly about US Open Cup, MLS Cup, Supporter Shield, Champions League if you're in it, Campeones Cup now, a World Cup style tournament that you might have to play another 7 extra games in, and a playoff series where you might have to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 more games to win another title. You can't restrict the way that they hold their team together or build their team rather and ask them to play 60 games a season. It's wrong. It's purely wrong.
All right, you've completely gone off into roster rules at this point.
Well, no, but it
like
ties back. It ties back to the playoff format, right? It ties back to the idea that
it ties.
If this is the way we're going to do it, then it has to go hand in hand with the expansion of our roster rules. I'm not diving into the logistics. I mean, I did, but I'm not really trying to dive into it. But what I'm saying is, if you're asking teams to care about 34 games in MLS play, 4 or 5 games in US Open Cup play that can go to extra time, a Champions League run that would involve at least another 7 games, a Campeones Cup that we talked about would cost you another 7 games, and now an MLS run that'll cost you 7 games. You're putting too much stress on these players. Your injuries are going to go through the roof. You're not going to have enough people to filter through because you're only going to have homegrowns left or low senior minimum players left. It isn't. This move needed to come after the change in those roster setups. That's what I'm trying to get at. If this was going to be the way it had to be, this had to be the second move, not the first. That's where I'm trying to go with this.
I don't disagree with you. Yeah, they definitely need to change the roster rules. I don't necessarily think the number of games is necessarily an issue, but I think that they need to change the roster rules so that you can have more opportunity for more players, because I think that would obviously give them an opportunity to rotate, gives younger players an opportunity to play in games and get exposure. I feel like adding all these games is just going to kind of like dilute the meaning of these games, because now, like, I mean, MLS teams were already kind of sacking US Open Cup and just like rotating their team fully. At this point, I feel like you 100% are going to see that across the board. I mean, it's almost like it might as well just be almost like a USL competition at this point, because it's going to be lower league teams playing most likely at full strength against MLS teams who are playing guys who are like MLS Next guys, or guys that aren't really much in the rotation, just so they can rest legs, because now they got a league game or a Champions League game or something like that coming up. So I get it. I definitely think they need to change the roster rules as well. But I was mainly focusing on the playoff format itself, not necessarily the full scope of the season. Uh,
No,
but
I
yeah,
get
I
that.
mean, I mean, I'll go back to saying that I do like the best 2 out of 3. Uh, I know you say that's not really a soccer thing; it's more of an American sport thing. But I feel like it gives the better team an advantage over the worst team. So it gives you something to play for in the regular season, other than just like supporter shield. And it also helps to prevent, one-off results in games where the better team has a bad day. Like RSL in 2021 went to the Western Conference Finals. Are you going to tell me that that means that RSL was the second best team in the Western Conference? Like, I think even RSL fans will agree with you that that's not the case. They were not the second best team in the Western Conference, but they won a penalty shootout against Seattle in the first round to move on, and then they beat SKC. And I'm not saying they don't deserve to be in the conference finals, but they were definitely not the second best team in the West that season. I mean, if I remember right, they barely even squeaked into the playoffs. So I feel like the best 2 out of 3 will, in more instances than not, move the better team on. Like in that case, the Seattle on instead of RSL.
If that's the case, and I don't disagree with you, but if that's the case, then you need to do it for every round. It can't just be one round. Then okay, we're back to single elimination crapshoot. Good luck, right? If that's what you want, if you really want a system that's going to flush out the luck and make it a true test of skill, then you can't do it just once and say, okay, well, now we're just going to move on, right? And
We could do it at the start and then get the better teams into the single elimination, and now you have better games like the game we saw in the championship last year with Philly and NYC. Because I mean, if you leave it single elimination the whole time, like yes, you obviously can still get the scenario like last season where you sorry, I meant Philly and LAFC. You get the situation where you have the two best teams that play in the final and they have an insanely good game. That's what everybody wanted to see. But you also have the scenarios where you might get like an RSL or like a Nashville in the final, who's most likely not the best team in the league, and then maybe you don't get the same level of play that we got to see in the last one. And obviously, like that can still somewhat happen, but I think adding in the one best-of-3 kind of will put more of the better teams into these single eliminations and give us more of these better games with like the better quality. Like obviously the fluke games can still happen. If Philly's the 1 seed, they could still lose to the 4 seed in the conference semifinals. I know what you're saying, but you know, you're not going to add 7 more games on top of this as well. I mean, then I think you're really pushing it.
listen, you're preaching to the choir here. I've been sitting here for years telling you that the playoff system is stupid and Red Bull is the best team in the league, and we don't get any credit for it because we don't win MLS Cup because we can't play in a knockout. I'm not. You're preaching to the choir here, but I don't love the best. I don't love the best of three extension on top of the playoff extension because, again, you're looking for is a team to get hot at the right time. If you get a team that goes from 11 to 9 on a 10-game win streak at the end of the year, right? Now you're looking at a team that's red hot, going into a knockout round, beating the number 8, winning 2 games against the number 1, and now they're playing crapshoots again. And I get it. It's you're adding another layer of mesh with these extra games. I get it. It's however, I I just don't love it. I don't love it because of all the things. If they had done this last year before Campeones Cup was announced, before and without the extension, right? If they just said 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 again, 6 and 7 play in game, and then we move, right? No Campeones Cup to worry about. It's a different story. But if they're doing it after the addition of another 7-game World Cup tournament style or World Cup style tournament, plus the addition of more teams in, it just makes the regular season feel kind of right? It makes it feel kind of to me because if 9 teams can get in, you're looking, and like you said, what was I'm sure you have it up faster than I do. What was the ninth place team point value last year?
For Eastern or Western Conference.
Yes.
Eastern Conference was 42 points for Charlotte. Western Conference was 43 points for Vancouver.
Sure. So I just pulled it up too. So you're looking at 43 points, a team that was 12, 15, and 7 with a minus 17 goal differential, and a team that was 13, 18, and 3 with a minus 8 goal differential, now becoming a playoff team. It's extensive. It's too much. The cut at 7 was fine. Half of the teams make it. Great. Whoop-de-doo, whatever. Stretching it to 9 just because you want to play in game instead of giving a team a bye, it feels excessive. But
well, maybe teams didn't want to buy either. I mean, we saw what happened 2 years ago in 2021 when both teams who had a bye had a huge stretch of time where they just like didn't play a game, and then they both got knocked out the first time they had to play. I don't
yeah,
know. I don't know the behind the scenes. Maybe they didn't want to buy anymore, but I still agree with you that they shouldn't have 9 teams in there in that case.
yeah, and I don't think it'll be tough to find people who agree with that take. Now, could they have fixed it where it wasn't such a well, and here's the thing. Let me backtrack one more time. This is my last point on this. You didn't need to add teams 8 and 9 to get rid of a bye. You just needed to make 6 versus 7 the playing game and go from there. You didn't have to add 2 more teams, but you did. That's where my issue is. You could get if the bye was the issue, you can get rid of that just by making the playing game 6-7. So, well, that was fun.
Well, no, you couldn't do that in that case because
You could.
then you have 3 matchups in the next round, and then what? You have 3 teams then. You'd have
Oh
to
yeah,
do
you're right.
you'd have to have some kind of if you're gonna have 7, then somebody has a bye. If nobody has a bye,
Nope.
then you have to have 8 or 4. It's
Yep,
kind
you're
of
right.
tough.
You're
I get it. It
Yep,
is
you're
kind of
right.
tough.
Nope, I was
Listen,
wrong there. I'll
they're
hold
gonna
my hand
play
up.
around. They're gonna play around with the format, I'm sure, until they lock in the amount of teams that are gonna be in the league. So I don't mind them just continuously playing around with it until they find something they like. Hopefully, before they get to a point where they're like, all right, no more teams in the league.
Here's my prediction, and I'll let you make it if you want, or that we can just move on. They're going to get to 32 teams, 16 in each conference. They're going to go 8 teams total, 1 versus 8, 2 versus 7, whatever. They'll do whatever they want with the 3 best of 3 play, whatever. But they're going to go 16 teams, top 8 make it, done, and that'll be the end of expansion for MLS. Personally, that'd be my guess.
Yeah, and I'd be okay with that. I'd be all right
Me
with
too. Me too.
half of them, even though it's still a bit much, but it's probably the best number you can get without like having too little teams or having too many teams. So I think that would be a good settlement. Go
Yep.
with half the teams at 32 teams.